Hi, and welcome to Top Dice. Today we've got co-host Chris and our guest host Jay with us. Chris, I think you know already. Jay, you've been on once before. Do you just want to tell people who you are and what you do?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jay. I'm the sole person in Feral Gamers Inc., who's a publisher of role-playing games. Other than that, that's pretty much what I do. So yeah, that's me.
That's it. And I will put some links down to the page in the bottom of this video in the comments section for us and description. Okay, so it's coffee time. It's table talk. Let's start off with stories of the week. So, was the coast selling off Dungeons and Dragons, which was completely a non-story. Yeah, some people ended up with a bit of egg on the faces on that one. What's your take on it, Chris?
That's me. Quite fun.
Yeah.
Read before you speak, guys. Won't happen again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good take on it. Yes, I'm not going to sort of spend too long actually on this one, Jay. Really?
It was kind of obvious. Tencent aren't a publisher; they're a computer games.
Yeah.
So when I heard it, I thought, yeah, no, that's not happening.
Yeah.
It's no one of those stories.
No, it's well
Right.
out of their sort of comfort zone, really. Total.
Yeah.
And also, why would you sell, as you mentioned earlier, Chris, your major number one cash cow, which is Dungeons and Dragons? It really was just for third-party licenses for electronic-based games. And the amount of furore over the internet and YouTube channels with the number of people getting likes, watches, etc. over it is just absolutely ridiculous and all over nothing, as you usually find.
But I'd also, apart from laughing hysterically at the stupidity of people who thought they could make money out of this, I'd also like to say that there were some people out there that decided to hold back and actually use this rather than this and actually think. So well done to those guys for having credibility to hold back, find out the truth, and then sort of then make a video rather than going, oh, this isn't the video I was wanting to make, but I had to. It's like, really? That cliche again? You know, come on.
Well, let's face it, trouble brings you watches, listens, ticks, subscribers, and
Bad news travels faster than good. We all know that.
yeah, they don't want to hear the good side of things. But that's where we're going to come in. We're just going to cover the good side of things. So nice try, guys, about that. But no, it's not happening, and you look stupid. Right. Anyway, Pendragon sixth edition. That's been announced. Chaosium,
Good news.
Player's Handbook, and also the Grey Knight. Whoa, yeah, there we go. Have you played it? Have you looked at it at all? What's your views of the basic starter set there?
Well, I've never liked Pendragon.
Okay.
This is good.
I'm
Honestly,
not really a serious type. Yeah, I'm not really kind of a player of medieval knights and stuff. It's not really my bag. I only got it because I was kind of intrigued. But it's, I mean, it was like what, less than £30, and it's got a load of stuff in it. I was very impressed by there's Chaosium, so you get to expect that. But yeah, I mean, I've never played it. I don't think I'll ever run it, but it was intriguing to see what it's like. Yeah, on first impressions, yeah, it's all right. And not
Yeah,
really my kind of tea, but I can see why people like it.
yeah. It's now okay. I'm going to go out there and say I'm a bit of a fanboy. Have been since the old first edition, the old style box that Chaosium released for it, and I've had a few games of it. I've never actually played it. I've only ever run it, and those that I've done, I've really enjoyed. I've just not had the right players to continue on for an extended period of time. I've done the Grand or the Great Pendragon Adventure, started it off on several occasions, got part way through with it. I've played quite a few, I run quite a few of the other scenarios. The Grey Knight and Tournament of Dreams was another, which went down really well. And I like the way it forced you into role playing. And this is where a lot of the other players struggled with it, as in you're rolling against traits and you're supposed to follow your traits. And this is where things started to go wrong for a lot of my players. They were rebelling against it and just not acting like knights. And you've got to be in that frame of mind, I think, to play. Now, Chris, you weren't in any of those games. That was before your time, mate. What's your take on it? Have you had a look at the starter set yet?
Absolutely love it. I've had a good read of it all. I love one thing I do like about it is the art direction, that they've taken it in. Sort of very sort of medieval in feel, if it's historically correct or not, but you know what you're getting.
Yeah, you do. It's a book. It's a book and game about playing knights or knights of a certain era, the late Dark Ages, early medieval period. And also fantasy, chivalric knighthood, and that's what it's all about. Arthur is a legend. Whether he existed or not is another story entirely, but that's what it's all about.
And it makes for a different, unique role playing experience.
Very
not a role sort of experience where you get thrust into these scenarios and you have to sort of act accordingly, rather than kicking the door in, killing the monster and taking the treasure.
Yeah.
Which after 5 or 6 rooms gets boring.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Well, you've got the passions, you've got the traits as well. But as long as you sort of stick with your passions and traits and role play them, then there's no really need to roll the dice so much for those, except to possibly strengthen them, maybe question them a bit. But yeah, I do like the game, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they actually do with the Grey Knight as well. That was not a huge adventure, and I'm not going to sort of give anything away here as to what it was about, because there may be some people that will actually be looking at playing it when it does come out. But it's very entertaining, and I believe it's been really heavily redone and brought up to date. So that'll be good to see. It was great to see the inclusion of female warriors or knights or dames, as they call them, in the game as well, which is not entirely a new sort of take on things, but it was a different angle. Whilst before it was very much a separate sort of side of the game, and the female characters had their own character sheets with their own bits and pieces. This seems to sort of bring things more into line, and there's no reason as to why you couldn't have a female knight. Absolutely no reason at all. Not in that period. And the characters actually in that starter set, I think they're very well done. I love the fold out character sheets that they actually sort of have in there. And that was one of the big bonuses for me, I think, of that set. I'm looking forward. I've not actually played it yet, not run it. It's on the list to do, and I'm looking forward to actually doing it. And apparently the Grey Knight will fit in directly with the scenarios that are actually in the box set there. So that'll be good to see. And I've also got the big campaign sat on the shelf behind me, ready to go as well. So altogether, there's going to be quite a bit actually there. Now, I know they're actually going to be upgrading the campaign, the big campaign setting, but there's enough in there, and any Games Master worth an house can actually just use it. And it is still available if you want to get a paperback or a hardback copy on Drive-Thru RPG. So, any last thoughts on Pendragon?
I was saying, as I say, I think Chaosium tend to make a lot of games that are very reliant upon player agency and being involved.
Yeah.
There's another one that you really need to be into the game.
You need to buy into it. Yes, definitely.
Oh yes.
There's another. Is there another game that they've actually got coming out that I read somewhere? I could be wrong on this. Was there some sort of steampunky game they were looking at doing as well? I might be wrong on that.
About that.
No, I've not heard it.
We'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Regarding Pendragon, though, I'm really interested to see I think it's the first. Is it the play? Is it like a player's book? It'll have you know,
Yeah.
character creation, things like that, seeing what they've sort of updated from fifth. That personally should be quite interesting. Sort of like, you know, what sort of strange, weird knights can you create, or sort of variants thereof, you know?
Well, there was a book called, which I had, and it was the very first book I actually bought with the proceeds I got from some of my writing, called The Book of Lords and Ladies. And that was jam-packed full of alternative knight builds and female builds as well, for just about anywhere and everywhere, from Africa, if I remember rightly, France, Gaul, parts of Ireland, England, Scotland. They were all sort of in there as one, with all different sort of type of tweaks and loyalties, loves, etc. actually sort of in there too. So it'd be interesting to see what they've actually sort of pulled out of that. It was an okay book, that one. It was a little bit messy, but it was very, very good as a source book. And the one time that I did use it, the knights that came out were quite unusual, shall we say, quite different to the ones that you'd get from the old book. For me, third edition was the best version so far. I'll be quite blunt. I wasn't too keen on fourth, which was I suppose, it was the White Wolfy type one when they decided to do their thing with it. And then there was the fifth edition, which is the most recent up to now. That was okay, and that's been around for a long time and has been superseded by 5.1, I think 5.5. So we've got the sixth edition now. Looking forward to seeing it. So can't wait. Can't wait on that. In other news, recently, Cubicle 7, we've got a new version of the Laundry coming out, and we've also got Old World RPG for Warhammer. There we go, Laundry.
Views on Laundry. I haven't played it. I haven't even run it, read it. I don't. What's Laundry about?
Right. It's the civil service hunting Cthulhu creatures, basically. I can't think of any other better way to actually put it. I came across the books many, many years ago, before there was a role-playing game, and I read it. Well, the first book, and I was absolutely blown away with the ideas behind it. It's a low-level civil servant who ends up working for the Laundry, which is, I suppose, an old secret service organization, a branch that had been left over from World War II. And he was quite low level and ended up sort of getting involved with things on a much sort of higher level. And the amount of paperwork and legislation that they had to deal with was absolutely astounding. And it just resonated so strongly with me. In other aspects of my life, that I'm not going to say any more on that front, but yeah, it was. I love the books. I thought they were really, really good, and also the fact that the concrete cows, if you've ever seen those near Milton Keynes when you've been travelling by train to London, the story behind them and them being part of a defence mechanism, etc., and also actually just absolutely mind blowing. I just loved it. All the various ideas, the various code names they came up with as well for various disasters. Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. The red tape was just enormous in it as well. That's from a player perspective, as in you've got to make sure that you've got the authorization to actually carry, use, and do X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, you'll get told off because you're not following civil service procedures. So that's the background on it. I don't know if have you read the books at all, Jay, yourself?
Yeah, I have. I've got the Charles Stross books. And yeah, the role playing game is, I liked him. I got the role playing game because of this Charles Stross book.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of like, it's like a modern day Cthulhu, where bureaucracy, computers, and all that sort of stuff come into it. So you can get demons that come through algorithms, and hacking and stuff, and all of that stuff goes into it. And it's more of like a modern got a twist on it. a more corporate modern day twist on it, I guess. But
yeah, very much so. Yeah, so a computer programmer can accidentally write a bit of code, Chris, and summon or open a gate to somewhere else and have something come through. And this is where the laundry come in. They do the cleanup operation.
Mm.
And with the person who's
Yeah.
actually done it, they're given a choice. It's join us, or otherwise you're going to have to disappear in some way, shape, or form. So invariably they end up signing up, basically. But you get all sorts of mad stuff in there, and it's not just Cthulhu. It's vampires, ghosts, just about any werewolves, any sort of supernatural creature whatsoever comes into it. And also the laundry links into other international agencies. The Americans have got their own. Russia, France, they've all got their own versions of the laundry. And obviously it's monetized through the back door. So the budgets don't appear anywhere. They all appear as part of something else. And it's just fun. So you basically it's James Bond meets Cthulhu. That's possibly the best way to put it. But with a lot more red tape.
yeah, the game is very UK centric.
Very.
It helps if you know places like Wigan and Slough and stuff like that, because they're mentioned
Yes.
apart. But so it's a little bit on the back of the actual book says there are things out there in the weirder reaches of space time where reality is an optional extra. Horrible things, usually with tentacles. Al Halazrad glimpsed them, John Dee summoned them, H.P. Lovecraft wrote about them, and Alan Turing mapped the past from our universe to theirs. The right calculation can call up entities from other older universes or invoke their powers. Invisibility, easy. Animating the dead, trivial. Binding lesser demons to your will, easily doable. Opening up the way for great old ones to come through and eat our brains, unfortunately, much too easy.
There you go.
So basically, it is kind of a British-centric kind of Cthulhu game.
Very much so. Very, very much so. And I would suggest to anybody that's listening to this, pick up if you like any of the Lovecraftian stuff, pick up at least the first book of the Laundry series by Charles Stross and have a read, see what you think. The new one that's coming out, it's looking like it's going to be D6 based, so it's going to be using their new house system, or it's not the new house system for Cubicle 7. They've had it around for a while, but they've been tweaking it, haven't they? It started off with the old Doctor Who one, and also Primeval, I think, was the same, wasn't it? So they all sort of interlink, and they've sort of come up with a base to use, a bit like the 2D20 for Modipus. They've come up with a base system to actually sort of use themselves for the games going forward.
It's a bit of a shame because the original was obviously using BRP, which kind of made it Cthulhu, compatible.
Yeah. That was one of the big things, I think, actually, with it, and one of the reasons why I did actually sort of pick the role-playing game up as well. That said, it's going to be interesting to see what they actually sort of do with it, and if the starter set is anything like the ones they've done recently for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, Doctor Who, etc., I think it'll be a darn good purchase, and it will be a very interesting game to play. So I think watch the space on this, but we've also got, of course, Warhammer Old World RPG that they've announced. And again, it sounds like it's going to be like the Soulbound D6 based game. They've already got Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay out, so I'm not sure where it's going to fit in the grand scheme of things, this particular one. Obviously, they've got their own ideas, but any thoughts from you two?
I basically think how Cubicle 7 are doing it, they're going to have Wrath and Glory, Armies or Sigmar 1 and Old World as their D6 systems, and then you'll have the latest Imperium Malediction and Warhammer Fantasy as their D100 systems.
Yeah.
So you'll have a choice of either playing it as a D100 or playing it as a D6. And I presume the D6 ones will all be interchangeable, I guess, in some ways. If it carries the same mechanic, then I guess it will all be a little bit. I think that's what they're kind of doing. They're kind of doing Imperium Maledictum and Warhammer Fantasy for the old diehards who like the original games, and the new games are going to be the D6 system, which seems to be a kind of a thing at the moment. There's an awful lot of D6 games coming out, so
Simplified, yeah. And I think it could potentially be really good. Now, I know, Chris, you've got a huge love of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay Second Edition, and the same as myself. That is my pinnacle as it stands at the moment. But I'm actually really excited to see Old World and see what it actually does, and see if it will actually clean up some of the issues with Fourth Edition and make the world more playable.
Yeah, I'm more curious as to, like you were saying, the system they're going to use. That makes an awful lot of sense. Because why would you have two competing percentile systems, especially when you own both? Counterproductive, wouldn't make much sense. So I suppose if you use your own in-house system, the D6. But I'm still struggling with with the idea of having two games with one world.
Yeah,
it's like
Doctor Who. I'll throw this straight away. Doctor Who. You've got the Doctor Who role-playing game, and you've got the Doctor and the Daleks, which is 5th edition compatible. So you've got Doctor Who, which is a D6 game, and Doctor and the Daleks, strange name for it. It was D&D for 5e, and I don't know.
Yeah.
First, I think that's more of a, dare I say it, sellout for D&D, shoehorning it into a system that it's got no business being in. But that's just my personal opinion on that one. It's just
perfectly valid.
Valid.
I think maybe
I don't think it's a good. I think it will maybe dilute the system, the setting. I don't know. I don't want to be negative, but it's hard enough to focus on all the role-playing games that are out there, but when you give them more than one in the same world, it's like,
why? Yeah.
Hang on a minute. What do I do?
Yeah. Why is the question, I think, here? Well, what I suggest we do with that one is we'll actually sort of have a look at it when it comes, and we'll sort of reconvene, and we'll have a special old world session on that, and have take it to pieces basically, and see where it works, where it doesn't.
If we get the actual facts of the matter, actually, rather than just jumping to conclusions, which like so many people do, we'll just I think it'd be best just to wait, see what Cubicle 7 do, and then we'll go from there, I think.
Yeah.
I think for me, when Wrath and Glory came out, because I was a big fan of Dark Heresy, the role-playing game, and when Wrath and Glory came out, I wasn't particularly enthralled by it because it was D6. So I was really pleased when they brought out Malediction. So when they brought out the Warhammer Fantasy game, because I liked the original, I was thinking, oh, this is good. Yeah, they've cleaned, updated it. But I wasn't particularly interested in the Sigmar game they did. But I was interested in Warhammer Fantasy because it was something I'd played in the past. So I can see why they would do an old world game for those players who are just now coming into role playing, who play Warhammer, which is a D6 based game anyway.
Yeah,
it's a kind of easy crossover to the old world stuff. They can use the exact same D6 in the Warhammer Fantasy game or the Warhammer game, and it's designed really for newer people, I think. Whereas Warhammer 4th edition and Imperium made for people who played it in the past, and loved it, and want to continue playing with newer, updated rules, new artwork, and right. So it's another way of. It really is just two options for people. I would never play with D6 games. I would rather play with D100 games. So
yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. As in, I prefer the extra dimension, I think, of D100. There's more options, more outcomes potentially than you get with D6.
Yeah.
But I will give this I am quite excited about it. I will give it a look at. I have been tempted to pick up the Soulbound. I haven't done yet. I've noticed there are some very cheap copies circulating around now, so I'm quite tempted with it, and I might actually at some stage just give it a go. But I don't know anything about that particular aspect of Warhammer because I don't play the actual war game. It's a complete mystery to me, and I've never really sort of followed Warhammer all to that sort of level to understand that side. And it's been years and years since I actually played the Warhammer fantasy battle side of things. It must be 30 odd years now since I last played that.
Age of Sigmar is a very, very interesting and dangerous rabbit hole to go down.
Right.
That will have its own video at one point.
Yeah, if you could actually sort of bring me up to speed on that, then we'll get together and you can sort of you can tell me what it's actually all about because I'm completely clueless about it. It's not something that's really ever appealed. Oh,
you got Mordheim.
Now that's something I do know.
Yes,
that's my game of choice. If I play fantasy, Warhammer Fantasy, that's what I play Warhammer.
Oh yeah,
that was quite big. I remember that being very big actually, and also Necromunda as well, which was the more the skiffy sort of sci-fi aspect of things. But yeah, bring it on that. Anyway, it's we'll see what happens anyway with these. There's some interesting things coming, very very interesting things. And as the year's going on, I know we're only at the start of it. There's more interesting sort of games being announced and takes on things. I'm tempted actually to sort of try the new Pathfinder second edition when it comes out. The second edition that's just recently been released a couple of years ago, that didn't appeal to me at all. I know a couple of people have been trying to get me into it. I did enjoy first edition, but I kind of moved on when I started looking at fifth edition D&D. That kind of came back onto my radar more D&D than Pathfinder, and I kind of left the Pathfinder thing behind. But I might just give that another look at. Starfinder, I've not yet been able to get into that, which is a shame because it does appeal to me. And I don't know if either of you two have ever been Starfinder fans or even
not
read
really,
it.
Not really. I've looked into it, but it's not for me. System wise, levels, things like that. No, not for me.
There was right. This is going back quite many years, and I think it was Fantasy Flight Games that did it. There was a game called Dragonstar, which was D20 based on the old third edition D&D, and I had the Player's Handbook, the Games Master's Handbook, and 2 or 3 supplements for it, and it was a really interesting sci-fi fantasy setting with dragons, elves, all that in sort of a D&D Spelljammery type universe. And I actually got to play on that more than a few occasions and really, really enjoyed that one. And I keep thinking that Starfinder is almost a recreation of that from what I can actually sort of tell. But really, I suppose I should spend more time looking at this game. And I'm surprised that I've not actually sort of given it a proper go at this one. Anyway, it's Starfinder possibly, but yeah, Pathfinder second edition, the new version. I'm probably going to give it a look at. That's my take on that one. And that's something else that was announced this week, by the way. I think it was this week anyway, very recently. And there's a full list of new books that are actually sort of coming out. The front cover for the new Starfinder looks quite jazzy as well. It reminded me of I don't know, of another game, one of Chris Birch's earlier games that he released many years ago. But that's Star Blazer. If you remember the old sci-fi commando comics. Don't know, again, possibly you might not remember those, Chris. Back in my youth, there was They were Commando. We can still get them Commando comics, which are little tiny digest things
I do know
about that size, but quite thin and complete stories all in, a bit like I suppose the old War Picture Library and all that sort of thing. And there was a science fiction one called Star Blazer with sci-fi adventures in, and that actually had a role-playing game by Chris Birch. In fact, I think it was his first ever role-playing game, that one they came out with, and that was quite good. That was a huge, thick book. That one, that was definitely +5 to hit. Was that? No, did you ever come across that one, Jay?
No, I've not heard of that one. No.
Right, yeah, Star Blazer Adventures. I'm sure it was like that. At the time. It was. I know this. Some of the books you get these days are just stupidly thick, but this was absolutely. It was Cubicle 7. I'm sure that actually produced. That's when they were sort of doing their old RuneQuest books and all that. So that's quite a few years ago, that one, and Elric, and I remember picking it up off the shelf. Anyway, memories from the past there. Right, Jay, I think you've actually got a role-playing game you want to sort of show us, and we're going to have a bit of a chat about. Now, for this section, Chris and myself have no idea what
what
we're going to get thrown at, so go on, show and tell. Show us what you've got. Wow. Ha ha. Yes.
Oh,
I know it. Yeah, do know it.
quite some time.
Right. Why did you pick that one, Jay?
It was a game that never played it. All right, I've never run it. I never played it. Really unique when it came out. It was a bit different.
Very different.
It was kind of yeah, and I really kind of liked the fact it was different. I think at the time I was playing Talos Lanta and Jaroon and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was kind of into that kind of weird sci fantasy kind of thing. And this kind of came out, and it looked just really. I like the whole house, noble houses, and the history behind it. So yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I don't think I remember looking at the system and thinking there was something about the system I didn't like, but yeah,
the system had flaws. Yeah, the system did have flaws.
Yeah.
All systems have flaws. It doesn't matter what they actually are. I've not come across anything perfect other than your games, Jay, which are absolutely 100%. But
of course they are.
Yeah. But my memory of that is I actually was a player. So it's quite a rare instance where I actually play rather than Games Master or Dungeon Master or something. And it was very much in the style of the Trigon Empire, which is a very old British comic strip, which goes back, I think, to the 60s and 70s, Book and Learn magazine. And we were the equivalent of Roman centurions in space, which was quite impressive. Even down, there's another book that had been out called, I think it's called Guns, 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 with an exclamation, something similar to that. And in this particular book, there'd been like Uzis and other things, but they'd been Roman Empire. I think that's the only way to actually put. So they've got glorious etchings on, and legions of sort of, I don't know, Roman numericals and all sorts of Latin sort of inscribed across the barrels of these things. And it was just absolutely amazing. We really loved it. We went and we had to go and save a planet from barbarians, which was basically a rival house in effect. And we were very successful in it. Chris, did you ever get to play Fading Suns at all?
Oh, did I? Yes, love Fading Suns. My good friend Alan introduced me to it.
Yeah.
We take turns to sort of run things for our group at the time that we might not have heard of, and this instance it was his turn to bring a game to the table. We did character creation. He was fully invested.
He does get, yeah, I know Alan, and he does get very invested in his games.
It was it was like nothing I'd ever played before. It was just it was amazing. Absolutely love it. I always thought about sort of maybe investing in it myself, but it was a little intimidating because there was loads of stuff had come out for it.
There was.
With that.
There's a new version of it out, I believe, and I'm not. I think it was kickstarted a couple of years ago, and there is this glorious looking slipcase knocking around of it, but it's not cheap. It really isn't cheap.
Worth it though, I suppose, when you think about it.
If you're going to play it, this is it. There's so many games out there, and I think it's like yourself, Jay. I pick things up to pull ideas from and to sort of spark imagination. Not so much it's interesting to see what they do with the rules in some cases as well and how far they take them. But I tend to get inspired, and usually I go off at a complete tangent to what the game actually is and come up with a whole new different take and end up right down some mad rabbit holes at times as to what to do with these things. And this is why I have so many different game systems. I've got close on 200 different game systems at the moment, which is just ridiculous, really. I'm never going to play all those. It's down from what I used to have tremendously. I used to have probably 5 times that back in the 90s, along with associated supplements, etc. But yeah, it's just way too many. I could never play them all, even if we play them on a daily basis. I think we need to get more gaming done as well, guys. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
So,
for me, Fading Suns was just it was just different because
very.
I think I've got vague memories of. Oh no, actually, I don't think it was Alan that introduced it. It was sorry, I'm giving credit to the wrong guy here. I think he's a member of our group on Facebook, Dave Warren. Yeah, if you're watching this, Dave, I think it was you who introduced this to our group. Sorry, mate, I completely forgot. Just remembered now. I'm sure it was Dave Warren, and we had all kinds of fascinating games regardless. We were playing we were playing D&D at the time.
Very different to D&D.
Yeah, which I'd introduced to the group weirdly. And I went all 3rd edition mad, and then this came along, and it was like Adventures in Space and all that.
It was very much a fantasy sci-fi game rather than hard sci-fi, and some of the ships and other things and weapons were again just so unusual. So that's well, there you go. That was a blast from the past. I've not seen
really good
for years. That game, it's a shame actually that it kind of disappeared off the face of the earth for ages. But I might just end up picking the new version up at some stage if I find a copy at a decent price. I might have to
get myself actually because
yeah. Right. From my side, I've got to grab something. So what I'm currently prepping is Castles and Crusades.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Very slim. It's unusual. This is an earlier version. This is my favorite version actually of the Castles and Crusades. I've got a later version of the Player's Handbook, I think, on the shelf, which is quite a bit thicker than that. Basically, it's like a trimmed down version of 3rd edition D&D, and for me, it's one of the slickest systems, almost old school, basically. One of the slickest systems, and yeah, I just love it. And I've got Castle Zagzig to actually run alongside it as well, so that's going to be quite an interesting take on it. And that's what I'm going to be doing next up for me. And we'll see how the players actually sort of cope with that. They've never played that before, any of them, so that'll be a first for them. And it may be that you actually sort of end up kegging in on that at some stage, Chris. And it really is a step back in time, is that? So that's what I'm currently sort of looking at and working on. That should be good to go in a couple of weeks. What are you on at the moment, Jay? What games are you running? I mean, you heard you mentioned Call of Cthulhu on some chats earlier on.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the moment, I'm kind of, I was running, well, I kind of only play, well, well, in the evening on a Sunday, I'm playing Deathbringer, which is the Dungeon Craft game,
Yeah.
which is basically an OSR game, really. And I was going to be running a science fiction game. At the moment, I'm in a toss-up between it being Traveller or Stars Without Number. But even saying that, I'm kind of leaning towards Mothership.
Heard a lot about
yeah,
Mothership.
yeah,
Heard a lot
yeah,
about.
good actually. Yeah, I am wanting to run a Cthulhu at some point with a group, but I've got to find a group to do that with. But yeah, I'm not playing as much as I'd like, and a lot of the time is because when you spend all day writing it, I don't really want to speak it sometimes.
Yeah, you get sick of it.
Exactly. That's one of the blockers for me. That is one of the blockers for
I don't
me.
want to be staring at a computer screen because I do a lot of my gaming online, so I don't want to be
Yeah.
all day long either.
A lot of my days involve Teams chats, etc., and Teams meetings, and again, lots of writing, heavy duty writing at work. So yeah, and also whilst I'm at work, I do actually sort of take my game books with me, which to the great amusement of many people there, because they'll walk into the room that I'm working in, and there'll be a big pile of D&D or Call of Cthulhu or Castles and Crusades or the Laundry or something there, or Primeval or Doctor Who, and they'll be going, "Oh, what the hell are you doing now?" And it's quite interesting because none of them are gamers, so they just don't get it. But I'll be there hurriedly sort of putting notes together about what direction to take these games and putting game ideas and adventures together. So yeah, I spend quite a lot of the day. So I don't spend as much time playing at this moment in time as I want to. However, like yourself, I'm planning in the second half of this year for that to all change. That's on my to-do list. I've got a few things coming up over the next few weeks, which will keep me busy, and then hopefully begin to sort of ease my way back into it. And I've told myself that I want to try 5 new games this year. So I've already tried one. So we'll see we'll see what else that we can actually sort of do. That was Troubleshooters, by the way. Really enjoyed that. It's very, very good. It worked really, really well. So there were some holes with the rules, but we worked around them. And yeah, good time was sort of had. And I know we've got Advanced Fighting Fantasy coming up.
Yeah.
I've got this one coming up. I'm going to be doing probably the Doctor Who one and Pendragon as well. So we might actually end up with more than the usual run-of-the-mill ones. I've also got AD&D lined up there as well, but I'll probably leave the AD&D to later on in the year. We'll just see how it goes. And of course, there's 5th edition bubbling under as well, which I know you're not a fan of, Chris, but I will force feed it you at some stage, even if it's just for a few sessions.
I mean, I'll play it, but I won't run it. See, that's the difference. You see,
that's it. And then there's a whole stack of indie stuff as well. I want to sort of have a go at least have a few odd sessions. So yeah, there's loads there to sort of go at. And of course, later on in the year, there's Assassin's Creed out, which is one game. Never played, as I keep saying, I've never played the computer games. I've only read the books, but I've just fell in love with the actual setting through the books, and it's looking like that'll be quite a different role-playing game, using some very different rules that I've never seen before. So just watch this space. That looks like it'll be quite good. We'll have cards. You will have cards in it, Chris, I'm afraid. But once, and that was turning me off it. But once I realised what those cards were and what they were doing, it was like, oh yeah, okay,
well,
I'll buy that.
Cards in role playing games don't have to be a bad thing. Free League do a very good thing with cards. Dragonbane, fantasy role playing game. does a brilliant thing with card decks. Yeah, cards can work.
Yeah.
The
cards are going to be your characters. No,
well,
I'll leave that there. That's
we'll see.
Yeah. You wait till you actually sort of see it in operation. You'll go like, oh, okay.
We gave 3rd edition Warhammer Fantasy a go. We can give this a go. So yeah, I'm game.
It. Yeah, we'll give anything a go. I just doesn't go that way. But anyway, if it fails and it's no good, then I'll be the first to hold up my hands and go, you know what? No, not for me.
Yeah.
Del's 2nd edition as well, or yeah, we want to have a look at that at some stage later in the year as well, Jay.
Far too many games. You mentioned for me this year I'll be doing Advanced Fighting Fantasy for you, Ade, and anyone else who decides to join in. I'm also going to be doing Alien as well. I've only ever played that. I've never run it yet. I've not found the right. Haven't found the right adventure that I liked.
Yeah, it'll sort of come to it. There's also.
I've come up with
that's something else that at some stage I want to give a go at.
Fantastic. I've come up with a slightly different scenario. So see how that goes down with you guys. So I don't fancy your chances, as they say, but we'll see.
Well, it's there. It's cinematic role playing, isn't it? That's what it's all about. That's so we've all got things on the boil then, right? Well, what we'll do. So any final words from anybody, Chris?
Just read before you speak.
Don't believe everything that you hear on YouTube.
Just calm down. It's only a role-playing game, dear.
Okay, lovelies. Okay, lovelies.
Yes. And you might be a professor in role-playing games, but use your brains.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who's a professor in role playing. Anyone who calls themselves like a professor DM or something like that. Really, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. I'll just end up sort of chortling behind my hand like that. Yeah.
We're supposed to, we'll keep it polite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. It's any words from wisdom from yourself, Jay?
No, not really. Just play games, enjoy games.
Buy more of his games.
Buy more of my games.
Yeah, buy more of his games. They are genuinely very, very good. So it's
absolutely worth it. And if you buy them, he'll make more, and hell, he can eat. You know what I mean? He's got rent to pay, guys. Don't be selfish.
Yeah.
That's it. It's of course we've got there was the lady who was advertising on our Facebook page as well, the artist as well.
Yes.
We'll need to see about getting her on at some stage and having a chat.
Anyone else like that? Contact us.
Yeah, if you want to sort of be on here and join us and face the wrath of the three, the unholy trinity, or the two, or even the one.
We are. It's all about community. It's all about talking about games and just enjoying it for what it is.
Well, we'll be getting together again soon to talk more. Now, I'm going to have a break for a couple of weeks, but I'm sure Chris will step up to the mark. And if you could actually host one maybe next week, that would be absolutely fantastic. Excellent. Maybe get Jay and someone else on, and I look forward to sort of seeing. I will be back. I'm just going to be taking a short break, by the way, guys. I'm not going to be disappearing forever. I will be back with you very shortly. And yeah, as was said, make sure you read about the news. Make sure you fully get the facts before you start jumping to conclusions and thinking D&D is going to be sold to some Chinese media company who makes electronic games. It's not happening. Right, and on that, like, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.
See you guys.
Bye bye. Thanks very much.